Okay, we're a little bit after the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We're going to learn about Word today. We're going to be very informal, so if you need to ask a question, we're going to be truly hands-on here today. So feel free to ask a question and have me stop. I'm hoping that you will be able to use the graduate school templates and really kind of get a solid use for those today, but then maybe also just learn how to use Word just a bit more. And let's go ahead and use some of these things. So just so that we can all get on the same I'm going to kind of make sure that we're at the same level so that we're using the same kind of functions with our keys. I don't know about y'all, but I actually use the find, find feature like with Control F very often, and I can just show you how to do that even on this this web page. So I'm just going to push Control F, and it's going to open this little box up here in the corner. Now I can use that Control F in Word and PDFs on the website, and then just find for something that I want to look for. So let's say if I can say Cynthia here, it's going to find my name here, or I can search for something very simple, maybe and you're going to see lots of options, or even Word here on this one, it's going to find the word Word several times, and I can move through these. And if you're on a Mac, you would just be using Command as well. So we're going to probably use that a little bit today. And I'm also going to, and then you can just close it and it turns itself off. Also going to be using copy and paste. I hope we all know how to do that pretty fast, but just make sure we all know those keystrokes. Again, it's just going to be Control C and Control V. So Control C does copy, Control V does paste, and on Macs that would just be Command C and Command V. And we're going to actually use that as we build our Word document together. So for some reason, they didn't put out one template. They have like the front matter, the back matter, and then the main body, if you will. And, it would maybe been a little bit simpler if they just put that all together. But so we'll use those to create one single document together. But as we're learning how to use Word here, and we're specifically learning how to use it for graduate school and working with our thesis and dissertation, if you'll go ahead and open the formatting here and the ETD checklist, these are both tools that I think would be very helpful, and I have them open up here. Here's the checklist. In fact, it is a good checklist, and will be used as you submit your thesis at the end or dissertation at the end. You'll put your name and semester, and then the reviewer takes this sheet and makes sure that all these things have happened in your document. And so then they make notes if there's something wrong. So to make sure that that is a smooth transition, once you turn it in, make sure that this is all checked before you turn it in, and then you won't have an issue. And then in, I'm way down here in the middle, the formatting manual, it is nicely set up so that once you get in here, you can kind of scroll down to their table of contents and just click on what you need to see, and it will take you right there. So we will use this pretty often to kind of make sure that we're representing what is needed to be happening with like our margins, our header and footer, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think the most times that I've had graduate students come into my office and ask for help is that they're clearly asking for help for research on how to find materials and stuff. But then occasionally they'll say, do you know anything about Word? Can you help me figure out how I can make my page numbers this way, or how I can help the table of contents? So I do know that there is some lack of knowledge around, but even from our website again, things you need to know from the graduate school. This is all graduate school information. If you open this tab, they kind of help you go through some information here. And this is where I found some of the different forms and trying to make sure that, you know, my steps and timeline are matching up, and some other information. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this. This is the thesis and dissertation forms, in which this is what we'll use a lot today. So this is the formatting manual that we have open already. Here is our templates that we're going to be putting together. And then here are some tutorials. Now these tutorials are actually from Word. So no, Rachel, can you not see my screen? Can anybody see my screen?
I can't see your screen, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can see your screen.
Can you? I can't see it.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Okay. Well, here, I'm going to stop sharing it and share it again just to make sure that maybe Rachel will catch you that time. If not,
yeah, sorry about that.
No, I've never had that situation where half could and half couldn't. So let's give it a whirl again. And then, so can you see it now, maybe, hopefully? I hope
no,
so.
I still cannot. I don't know. I'm on a Mac. I don't know if that changes something.
I don't know much. I'm sorry. I've never had that situation. So if anybody else can troubleshoot that, that would be great. Usually, if you can see my face, you can see that, or
let me log out and log back in.
Okay, see you in a minute, Rachel.
You know what I mean? Yeah, let me see if that helps. Thank you.
Yeah.
This happens if you're using Zoom in a browser instead of using Zoom as a desktop app.
Okay, let me do it in my app and see if that helps.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. That was very nice of y'all to help us figure that out. The other thing is, as people are coming in, I may have to kind of pop in and let them in. Let me see if I can do that from here. If we have anybody, participants can walk in. Okay, we're going to try to make sure that we see everything there. Okay, so let's finish talking about this. So our formatting manual is here, and we've had it up above, and then we're going to use these 3 templates. I was talking about the tutorials. So these tutorials are really from Word or Microsoft themselves, so not exactly from the graduate school, but they do give you a clue. If you don't know anything, then you know, they might give you at least in the right spot. But hopefully we will be finding some of that as well. And then I'm just really going to get in and do some basics with it, and make sure that we are kind of looking at same of the information. So let's see if we have anything. Oh, great, Rachel. I'm glad that we kind of solved that. That's perfect. Okay, so unless anybody has any questions so far, I'm going to start out in Word. I'm going to bring that Word over here, document. Let's see if that ends up. Can y'all see that on my screen? Let's just make sure we get a check for that. Yes. Okay. Yes. Great. Thanks, Madeline. Let me see if I can put that over here and keep it open. Okay. Great. So let's talk about some things. I don't know where you are in your journey of Word, but some things that I always do, I'm going to talk about some kind of just basics of Word itself. And then we're going to kind of use the graduate school materials to inform how we're going to make this Word work. You can see that I have my format. I don't even know what this button is called. Let me see, show hide of the formatting. A lot of times will do that if I am wanting to see what is happening, because see, you can see the spacing and the paragraphs. I don't always leave that on. You can quickly turn that off, and it's just right here on the home tab, right here at the top. It's just a quick toggle. But I had that on earlier because I was playing with the table of contents, and whew, that table of contents is going to give anybody a run for their money, I think. But so some things I do have here is, I notice now I might have to pull this Word down just a little bit so that we can see the total tabs up there at the top. Oop, it kind of threw it at the top there. I made it too long. Let's see how long this works for us. Because on the view, I typically have the ruler set on always so that I know where my margins are automatically. I leave that open all the time. That doesn't mean you have to, but maybe this is something that would be useful as you were building a special document. And that again is just view and ruler. Feel free to have your Word open and setting these up. If you want, you could even save one file and be like, okay, this is what the settings are for this document. The other thing that I like to use a lot of times is the navigation pane. Now that's going to really come into play when we're doing our table of contents. You can kind of see that and maneuver around in it, especially when you get a document that is super long. I'm going to try not to scroll back and forth as we get our template set up, but we will have to do a little bit of that. And so I know that that might be a little bit frustrating for you as the viewer, but this navigation pane will help us a little bit to maneuver around better. The other thing that I do is I always have my kind of proofing options in Word turned on. They now kind of run those under editor, and but to kind of set them up to begin with, you have to do file and you have to do options, and then you have some information in here. And so what I'm talking about really is under the proofing option here. So it's like the third one down, and then we're going to scoot down here. I mean, you can definitely read all of these options, but some of the things that I really like to use a lot is I have my show readability statistics. I really like that a lot, just for my own writing, plus anything that you want to use there for your grammar. I have all of that checked, and then I save it and say, okay. So what that does is, as we're looking through this, when I click on editor, it won't run anything because we're in an empty document, but it will open this over here, and then I'll show you document stats. And that's what will really kind of help you. It won't because it's empty at the moment, but it will, as you start to use that a little bit, you can see, oh, I'm writing a little bit better. I'm writing not so good today. Like maybe I need to pick up the pace of it, or maybe if I'm really trying to do something at an academic level, right? Maybe today's not the day to write. Maybe I need to do something else, and you know, some other tasks that I might need to be able to get done, like some other homework or some other research, and then try to do that again. And I also think it's really good for you to really identify your needs. You know, hopefully we're all writing at our best times, but sometimes we have to write when we can also. I understand that. But I know myself, I really write well in the mornings. So that if at all possible, if I can maneuver my day to let me write from like 9 to 11 or 9 to noon, then that is a really good writing day for me. Or sometimes I have to block off the whole day, like, okay, I'm going to write this day and I'm not going to do anything else. So if you can be able to do that with your own schedule, I think it really helps. If I'm really trying to struggle to write and I'm sitting down at 4 o'clock, that is not going to be a good time for me ever. So, you know, trying to put my best foot forward sometimes helps a little bit as well. Okay, so that is just some basics that I kind of keep on all the time. I don't always keep this window open. You can close that, but I just a lot of times use the editor to catch the spelling, but also that document statistics. And when you use that document statistics, it will, at first, it won't really mean anything to you, but as you use it more and more, then it will become more meaningful. Okay, so then let's talk about, let's get in some things with the graduate school, right? I think some of the things that we all have a problem with, we'll kind of hit some of these, and maybe at the end, we will come back and make sure we've done some of these. Like I think some tips is always the running header starts on page II. This seems to be an issue trying to get the page numbers to be Roman numerals at the beginning, but then Arabic numerals later. We can definitely cover that. But so this is the cheat sheet, if you will. And I'm actually going to close this tab and so I can get to our manual. And let's just kind of look at our margins. I'm going to jump us down there because I have those little anchors in, and we should be using margins that are set 1.5 on the left and 1 inch on all the others. And we can do that by setting up our margins. Sorry, it's under layout. And then our margins is right here. We're going to do our drop down there. Now I change my margins a lot depending on what it is that I'm doing. And I can always do a custom margins at the bottom. So there is one that is kind of set that is pretty close, right? And they ask you specifically do not do mirrored margins. So I would always just take one of these or do a custom. And then you can just change that. So the top and the bottom and the right should be 1 inch, but the left is supposed to be 1.5 inches. So you can just use the little arrows to make it say 1.5. And then you say, okay. And so now our margins are set here. We even know that because we can see our margins from our ruler and it is set. And then if anybody has any questions, you just interrupt me. I appreciate that, or drop it in the chat. So then the next thing that I want to kind of talk about is our line spacing. And I think it's just below here, so I might just scoot down to see if I can find that. Maybe it's a little further down than I thought it was. But then we can talk about it as well. So this is main text formatting. So when we have those 3 templates from the graduate school, they're really checking you to have the line spacing for the main area, the middle, if you will. And so that it should be either double or 1.5, and that some things are single spaced. So like tables and figures, if it has a title of 2 or more lines, it needs to be single spaced. Subheadings should be single spaced if it has 2 or more lines, because most subheadings will just be a phrase, right? And it won't wrap, but it depends on how far into your document and the table of contents, if that even a phrase might be long enough to wrap around. And then your references at the bottom are single spaced. So just be aware of that. And you can kind of set it up as double spaced everywhere if you want, and then just fix those at the end by highlighting. So let's go ahead and look at our spacing. So our spacing is right here. We're still under the layout. We can do this little doohickey. I don't even know what that looks like. It's like a little square with an arrow pop out icon. So if you open this, you can really see what your spacing is going to look like. You can see the before and the after. I typically set mine to even 6 points after, but then you can see the multiple lines. It automatically has 1.5 or double. You can set that. You can see a preview here, and you can say, okay. So we have this one set to double space. So let's then talk a little bit about page numbers. I'm just going to get us back on the home page tab. I kind of live here. Of course, we probably all do. But then our page numbers are really going to be under insert. And so the trick here, I think people don't always know, if we have a line, I'm just going to type something here. You really can make different sections, and we can put that template together and I'll show you again. But if you wanted to insert your page numbers, you would, I'm sorry, they're not on insert tab, are they? I lost the page numbers. Layout. Let me check.
It's under the header and footer under the insert tab.
Okay, yes, it's over here. I was thinking there was an option to get to it here as well. Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know why I forget that. Sometimes we, you use a lot of these pieces, but then you don't use them all the time, right? But the page numbers, if you want to set those up, you would do that. You can kind of set these, and I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on this setting this up because they're in the templates. So I think even you're supposed to be using the bottom to the right, but we'll look that up again. But I was really kind of talking about when we have the templates together, maybe we should just get those templates open so that we can see that. Sometimes you have to have different sections to have different page numbers. So specifically that one where we have the Roman numerals at the top of the pages, and then in the middle we'll be having Arabic numerals. You have to do a page break. And so I think that that is what confuses people. And then you would have to use that page numbers you would use the modification. And I think that really is under here. Let me look for that real quick. So maybe if I get those up and going. And let's just see if there's anything else. Yeah, so then you can do the section break too, that I think is useful, which is under layouts, and then you have breaks, and you can have a page break, which I think quite a few of us might use, but I don't think everybody uses a section break, and we're going to see those as we get into the templates, and that is what's going to help you. So this now is a different section than this, and then I could have page numbers up here be different than the page numbers down here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to open a new Word. I'll leave that other one open so that we can find it if we need it, but then we can get back to our page. I'm sorry. Well, you'll need the forms. So if you want it, if you need this link again. What we're going to be doing now is let's look at the dissertation forms and let's pull that down. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down the front matter. And this is the beginning of the document. I wish that they would kind of put these in the order that they expect you to use them. But I mean, I think we can all understand that the front matter is the beginning of the document. The main text is the middle of the document, like where all your charts, chapters are. And the back is like your references and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and download this. I hope you do the same. And I'll open that. And so I have this here. And one thing that I often do, and I didn't really kind of talk about that when we first started discussing Word, is before I do something that I think might change the layout of the whole document, I go ahead and save. So as you can see, I don't have my auto save on, because if I did something and I didn't really want that, you can go back, but sometimes maybe you need to go back 3 steps instead of just 5 steps. Sometimes it will let you go back that many times, sometimes it won't. And so I just kind of always save something before I think, oh, this might really cause a big glitch. Before I do that, let me save it. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this document a bit, because the one that I think is going to give us the most problem is the table of contents. And that's the one that I've seen most people kind of talk about, ask about, and so or get stuck with, if you will. So when we're putting in the other two to this one file, I would go ahead and drop that all together, even before I started really kind of messing with the information, because you can see they've got little notes to tell you what you're supposed to be doing here, and trying to give you an example of what is needed there as well. So let's go. I'm just going to get to the bottom, and I'm going to drag the next template in here. So I'm going to open the main text one, and I'm going to open that. But really, I'm just going to highlight all of this information. And copy that. And then I'm going to get at the bottom of my front matter, which I have got at the bottom of this, and insert it. Before I do that, I might turn even on my show hide. So you can see there's no break here. And that is one thing that I think is needed to make the next part work. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a break here from my layout and click insert next page so that we have a section break. And it tells you that at the bottom. You can see now that it has indicated. Why did that not work? That's interesting. Let's try again. I'm going again. Sometimes that happens. So then you saw it entered it this time, and it put me onto the next page. So now everything that I copied, I can just push paste and it will be here. So, oh, it entered a section page at the very top. I guess my cursor was up there. I'm going to take this one out. And so you can see we have a page break here. And then we've seen now that we've had a section break. And they have a section break here. I hadn't seen very many section breaks that they had added. So I think that's what causes the page numbers to be a little bit wonky if you don't pay attention to that. So we'll just make sure that we've got everything in the way that we need it to be. And that's the section break that we just added. And here is the chapter below. So I'm just going to scoot to the bottom, be ready to copy my next thing. Let me get to that web page again and get the back matter. And I'm going to open that. And so then here, I'm just going to copy this. I think it's okay. We don't really necessarily need a section break here, I don't think. And we have some settings. And I'm going to drop this at the bottom of this page because I do think we're at the top of a bibliography should be on the new page. We could do a section break here. It might be needed. I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor here. I'm going to scoot down just to see and then put it in. And we should have that all married. So every time I'm doing that, I may choose to save and then just double check that nothing is changing as I'm adding each section. I probably add more, I save more often than I don't. And you may need to get in the habit if you had your auto save on all the time and you're choosing to work with it off now. So think about that as you start to work through this document. Okay, so as we've been talking about that, let's kind of talk about some basic things that we might need to address. We do have the page numbers inserted with, so the first two pages don't really have page numbers. This one starts, and if you double click on the page number, and then you try to format page numbers, then you have this little box. And so it allows you to choose if I need Roman numerals or Arabic numerals. So if you didn't enter that section, sometimes you would already be starting with a 2 here, and you would need to change it back down to this so that you could get the Roman numerals again. and you can tell it where to start, which page you need to start it on, and it will say okay. But we saved our section break, so we are good. And then if we look at our chapter, the middle document, this should be the last document that has Roman numerals, and our next one should start with Arabic number 1, and that should start on chapter 1 page. So you can see that that is what has happened here. If you need to come back to that little drop down or that open the box, you can still look at it here and find it. And maybe those are things that we want to discuss from the document. I'm just going to open that real quick again, and we can talk about our page numbers. So we make sure we're finding out what that information is. So under pagination, so it tells you clearly title page and the copy page have no page numbers. Roman numerals starts on in the front matter with II, and then the main chapter is 1. So has everybody been able to kind of marry their papers together and get their marry their templates together and been able to get their pages the correct way? Is anybody stuck there? Okay, I don't see anything in chat, but if you need to, just you can unmute yourself or type something in chat. I don't want to lose anybody. I've seen people be stuck on that for a while. Let's go ahead and then talk about our header and our footer then, if we're good with this. So let's look at what is the graduate school is telling us about our headers and our footers. So it was on the same page. I didn't even realize it there. So we're going to have a running header, and it appears at the top of the document. The running header can be a 0.5 from the top margin, and we can all talk about that. And then what it should say is Texas Tech University, your name, and the month, year of graduation. So let's look at our document. Again, let me see if I can find our document. The front matter one now should have all pieces in here. I'll just make sure that it is. And since that is doing that, I think I might just go ahead and rename this. So I'm going to choose to do file, save as, and then I can name it something here as like example. And don't file as I do. I put too much on my desktop. Do a better filing system than I am. So I'm going to say click save so that it will be there. Okay, so we can leave the headers and the footers open. We have that open for our pages. Did I just do something weird to the page numbers? No, they're there, sorry. Okay, so then this is the first one that we have a header on. Remember, the title page and the copyright page do not have a running header. It should start on the acknowledgements page or page II, if you will. And it should have the Texas Tech University and your name. So we could even change this to Cynthia Henry or whatever your name is. And then your month and year. I'll just pretend like I'm going to graduate in May. Oh, you see that wasn't quite catching it. So I'm going to do this and do May of 2022. Right, we all hope to be graduating that soon. And then just pull all that out. So you're ready to have your running header. I think that's pretty straightforward. I haven't seen very many people had a problem with the running header. So I think that that's okay. But if you needed to modify this, you would just, get in here and edit the header, or you can type in it and then you can close it and it will save that and put it across the pages now. Okay, so then one thing that the graduate school is kind of lets you be a little bit more open is your style guides. So the style guides is really talking about what style you'll be using. They say, what is a style guide? That's really how you do your citations and how you kind of lay out the paper a little bit. And those are different for different subject areas. So like MLA is very English history, Chicago. Also APA is mostly social sciences, but can be across a lot. In fact, I think APA is the default on campus. If your professor doesn't say anything, then you can always use APA if you wanted to. The CBE is really a style I'm not very familiar with. It's more heavy sciences. And then sometimes you have a Pacific journal style that you may want to use, and you could choose to do that. So they're allowing you to do whatever your school wants you to be doing. But if you don't have a option, then you would have to use Turabians. I had to use that in my program, and man, it is. I'm so used to APA and MLA now. I don't know if I could go back to Turabian without really having to do some big research. But so then that's what you want to use as you're setting up your rest of your paper. If you don't have a information answered here, then you can use that style. Or if there's not an answer in the formatting manual or in your style, then you're supposed to default to Turabian, as it says here. And so we're going to kind of pretend to use APA as we build this a little bit. And then also I like to talk about citation management software. If you haven't been using one, I really encourage you to do so. Although if you're really graduating this semester, maybe you're fine without it. I really encourage graduate students to do that at the beginning of the program. If you're just a semester or two out from graduating, maybe you've already had a good way to do your citations. But what I'm talking about now is like EndNote or Mendeley or Zotero, and they will help you build your citations within your paper, but also build the references at the end. Now, I know sometimes those software management tools sometimes conflict with the style setup that is in the Word document in your template. But you can just kind of play around with that and make sure that it is going to work well. So I haven't had any problem using EndNote with this template, although I only played around with it a little bit. And that's the tool that I kind of use a lot. And I've helped people kind of navigate issues that they saw with the template and EndNote, and we seem to be able to fix those appropriately. I haven't had any questions from Zotero or Mendeley, but if you use those tools and you want to explore some issues, we can definitely do that as well. So then let's kind of talk about maybe the table of contents. I think that's our next big one that we might want to address. And let's see what the graduate school has to tell us. So I'm just going to get up here and find the table of contents information. It's right here. Now, each one of these pages has some information here, so you can find lots of information. But I'm trying to hit the ones that I think have been the hardest ones to kind of manipulate, that I get repetitive questions about. So this table of contents section should be titled Table of Contents. It should have that all set up. The subheadings are indented in increments of tabs from the chapter titles. line spacing should be double or 1.5. We have picked double. And if you have a very long table of contents, you should do single spacing. And then it should be consistent with the wording and the capitalization. Page numbers should be aligned to the right margin. And then these leader lines, I'll show you what a leader line is. That little, this is what is called the leader line. Now, as we have this open and I have my show formatting on, you see a whole bunch on this page. And if I turn that off, it cleans up that page a little bit. But honestly, I like working with that on so I can see what is happening. These are tab indicators, and then we have the end of the paragraph indicators. And this is all set up the way it should be. So when you submit it, they do have some extra red text here that you could take out, and then you would just be having the chapter title. So let's kind of play around with this just for a second. I'm going to scoot down to really what is our pretend first chapter title in our next section. Again, sorry for the scrolling. But so here's chapter 1. And I think I'll turn that off just so you can see that clearly again. So you can see it's chapter 1. This is not the heading, right? So all chapter titles should have the heading 1, but this would not have any chapter. I mean, it would not have headings, so that you don't want that to be in the table of contents. So I'm going to turn that back on just so I can see it here. But we can talk about the different headings, and you can see them represented. If I put my cursor here, you can see heading 1 is there, and then heading 2 is here, and it comes up. And that is what is going to be represented back up into my table of contents when I update that table of contents, because remember, we took a generic template from the front matter and married it with the others. And so it will change this a bit. We will go ahead and the same with our table of contents. This table of contents, I think, is labeled as heading 1. I don't think it should be the heading 1, because then it will create a entry for the table of contents. So I think that's some things that kind of mess up this table of contents. And so I'm going to go ahead and change that before I update it. And I'm going to do that by using our tool here. I put my cursor in where I think it needs to be. And then I'm going to look and see if there's some different options here. I don't see it. So I actually am going to open this little pop-out styles. And I'm going to look for it over here. And they're alphabetized in the styles. So I'm looking for a table of contents, so a TOC. And so I'm going to go down to the bottom here. So then let's see here. Oh, I'm just going to look for that. I have found that earlier. Let me see. This is not table of contents. There it is. It was all the way at the bottom. I just didn't get all the way there. So I'm going to choose to change this to that table of contents. And I highlighted it again and then put TOC heading. Now, it did change it over there, but I can continue to manipulate that back to what I need it to be. So we know that we want it to be black. We know that we want it to be bolded, because I'm just going to make it exactly the same as these others. And so I'm actually changing this formatting. As I hover over it, you can see it on my screen, what is happening. And I will change this. So I'll do the next is the font and the size of the font. So let's go ahead and do that. We actually need it to be in Times New Roman and 12. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to change it to Times New Roman. I'm going to change it to 12. And then you can see that when I hover over here again, it should update that. Let's see, maybe because I have to unhighlight it and then do it. That's interesting. And then I'm gonna put it to bold. We haven't bolded it yet. I mean, all caps, because it needs to be all caps. Even of needs to be all caps. So now that I've changed the formatting on this, and then this has to be centered. This one is centered. We can pull that back up from the other. Then when I update it, it should be good. Let's see, it's in the, sorry. This is in the references. It's under references, sorry. So I'm going to actually do the update table, and then it should do a pop out here. It didn't do this pop out. So a lot of times when you change something, it will ask you if you wants to update the whole title, the whole table of contents, or just a little bit of the table of contents. So you can see that the table of contents has stayed the way it was supposed to. I'm going to toggle back and forth a bit here so we can see the difference. And we can pull the front matter down and see that we're back to the normal. But it looks like if I do that again, they have a chapter 1 heading here that shouldn't be here. So we'd have to change that heading down below. And the page numbers changed to capitals, which they're not supposed to be capitals. So we would need to change that as well. So we'll fix those. But you can also see that the heading 1 came up, and this is what it is supposed to be here. And so that should be heading 1. This should be heading 2, and this should be heading 3. And this is back to heading 2. So all of our pieces down below are working except for this chapter 1. We can even pull down the front matter again and kind of, y'all don't have to follow me on this, but I thought that you might see the difference there of when we just do it and we don't change anything and update the table of contents, it automatically changes to include the table of contents in the list because it was not set with the right formatting. So let me just go over here to references and do an update here. Oh, here it's going to ask me if I only want to do the page numbers or the entire table. I'm going to show you the entire table so you can see what I'm talking about not having that formatted right. But typically after we get it kind of set the right way, then I would only use the page numbers only. So you can see that it has actually put table of contents in here, and you can't have the table of contents in here. That's what the graduate school doesn't want it to be listed here. So, but it's because it is set to the wrong heading. And so you can see the headings again on the main home page, and then you can see that it is set to heading 1. But you can also see, since we did all that formatting on our own example, we don't have the table of contents down here. And we can show you from the front matter. If I just go back 1, our table of contents title still looks like what it's supposed to look like. I'm just going to kind of set these side by side, if you will. This one and this one looks the same. It's just not included in the list as it should be. Okay, so that was a lot of steps. Did everybody kind of follow those to make sure that your table of contents is not being included? Okay, I'm gonna keep going then as we work through these issues. I think we're gonna see some other ones that pop up. Since we have these sitting here, I'm gonna go ahead and fix these capitals because they shouldn't be here, right? All the Roman numerals should be lowercase. And if you look on this, it actually is still lowercase in the pagination. It's just not in the table of contents. So that just means that the table of contents is formatted slightly wrong. And so we just need to fix that. And so I'm just gonna highlight this number and right click and then find font in the drop down menu. And it is sitting here. Let's see. We actually want to be on the font side tab. We landed here. We want to be here. And so we see all caps. I'm just going to uncheck that and it puts it lowercase again. So I'm going to say okay, and it changed it. So I could quickly do that with all of these. I'm going to do one more. And you see we landed on the font tab this time, because that's what we used last, and I'll say okay. So now if I go ahead and update the table, I'm going to only update the numbers. If I end up update the entire table, it will make these capital again. So I'm just going to update the numbers only. And then you can see that it is sitting there. So I'm not going to do the chapter. The chapter is very much like the table of contents issue that we just solved. We would need it to be in not in a heading. So we can look here and we can see that, oh, it doesn't have it a heading. Okay, let's explore that a little bit more and see if we can get that to be fixed. Because we should really start with the introduction. All chapter titles is the title of our first chapter, if you will. And it should be the next one listed. So I'm going to go down to my chapter heading down here and see what is happening down there. And I just thought I might look to see, we've got a section break. So this should be clean formatting here. I'm going to click on this. It still doesn't have that as a chapter heading. You see, as I move across there, it's moving all the chapter headings. But so we want to format this. I will go back up here and see if there's anything labeled. It doesn't look like it. I'm going to drop out my pop-out menu. Oh, and it has it as a chapter heading. But then what is the spacing? So let me see if I can get that to highlight down below here. Modify that. So I was kind of just wanting to look at the, there it is. So it just says that it's chapter style based on heading 1. Maybe that's why it's having that issue. Maybe we need to change it out of the heading. So I am going to do the drop down so that I can modify it, because I don't want it to be a heading 1. I wonder if we could change this to a chapter heading in here. Let's see. Our options. Well, we do know this table of contents heading will allow us to not have that, and we formatted it appropriately, but we may need to do some more reformatting, because you can see it just kind of changed to the blue. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click OK, but then I'm just going to format this as I would anything else that I don't want to show up. So I need it to be back to black. I need it to be bold. I need it to be the New Times Roman. I need it to be 12. Do we think it was 12? I'm going to put it as 12, and then I'm going to double check that I'm not wrong about that. And then we needed it to be all caps, so I'm going to type that out real quick. Sure. And then we need it to be centered again. So I'm going to center it. And then I'm just gonna pull up the front matter if I still have that from the other time and double check. Oh, not the front matter. I need that middle template. And double check what our chapter titles are supposed to be. So it is actually 14. So I'm going to change that on my other template that I had changed to example. So we're in the example document where I've married all three of the templates together. So this really needs to be 14 in size. So now I'm going to close this window because we don't need it. Let's go back up to the top to our table of contents and see if we can't get this to update appropriately. So I'm going to highlight in here and go to my references and choose update table. Now, technically, I need to update the entire table so that we can get this out. Let's see what happens if I do that. It did leave, but it changed my Roman numerals back to capitals again. And so what I would do if I was working in this document, I would just make sure that I get everything ready and right, and then go ahead and change these at the end with that little cheat that we have. And then here, and then you should be able to update with just the page numbers and they will stay the right page or the right font size. So I know this looks a little bit weirder than our templates, right? Because we have the chapter title starting on page 1 and the first subheading on in heading 2 on page 1. But that is exactly what we've told it down below. So it is doing what it's supposed to. Let's scoot down there and just double check that. So we're on chapter 1. Here's our first title. Here's our first subheading. And it's still on page 1. And then you'll notice our first subheading 3 is on page 2, along with the background, which goes back out to subheading 2. So I'm just going to take us back up to the table of contents and look at that. That's exactly what we've said here. Here's our chapter title, our heading 2, our heading 3, back to our heading 2. Does anybody have any questions about that table of contents? Were you able to get that to happen in your own document? Maybe some thumbs up if we think we're doing good. Is anybody lost? Let's make sure that nobody's lost. Okay, I'm going to keep plowing through if nobody else has any other questions about that. Okay, so that's how you kind of fix these little issues, and most of it is not broken, but that is those two things for sure seem to not be working here. Everything else seems to be working. So then I could now take this document and really just put in the things that I needed to. So I could substitute my information here, although I want to make sure I was substituting that in the document here. So if I wanted to change that to my heading, I would want to change it here. So. Yeah. And if your chapter title is this long, remember it has to be single space. But I think most chapter headings wouldn't be longer than that. But depending on what it is you're discussing, it might be. Okay, I think those are the big things that I think are hard to tackle in getting these templates to work a little bit. And once you have it kind of set the way you need it to be, I would just save this and then use that. I don't know if anybody needs some just kind of basic information here, but they're pretty clear on what you're supposed to be doing. Page 2, sometimes people have an issue that you, one of the tips on the checklist is that you have to have the word copyright or the copyright symbol, but you cannot have both. So make sure you just leave the word copyright there. I mean, that's the simplest, right? And then put your name, and that's the only thing you got to change on this page. Everything else is set for you. So we've kind of tackled some big formatting issues here. And now I thought we might look at using track changes. I wonder how many of y'all have used track changes. Sometimes that is a hard tool to kind of get used to. I'm actually going to get back to our website here, and I'm going to use this Basset Hound track changes document that I created. I asked a couple of colleagues to help edit some things in here. So go ahead and open that. If you need that link, I'll drop it here in our chat. But I'm just going to open this from this page, and it will let us see another Word document. I'll kind of pull it down where we were working before. So maybe this is something that I've been using, and I've collaborated with a lot of people. So maybe myself, you can see my two colleagues here, Jenny Jacobs and Kimberly Vardaman, have helped edit some of the information here. So I'm going to get under review, and that's where you're going to see our whole tracking and changes panels, if you will. And we can talk about some of these things that are happening in this document. So let's say if we were using this for our thesis and dissertation, potentially I've written a document and then I've shared it with my committee, and the chair has made comments. Let's make that Kimberly Vardaman as maybe my chair, and then another person on the committee is Jenny Jacobs. So then when I get back in here for my review of what they've sent back to me, then you can see some different things here. So let's kind of just talk about how to use track changes. If you're in a new document, you can turn them on just by clicking on this icon, and it will turn it on. If you're in a document that is using it, you could actually turn it off if you don't want to track that. I don't want to do that right now, so I'm not going to click on that. But then we have this drop down menu. Let's kind of talk about those. So right now we see all the markup. So I can see that words have been changed. New text has been added. Let's see if anything's been deleted. I don't see anything that's really been deleted. So that's all the markup, but you can also see comments out to the side. Oh, there has been something deleted here, just an extra little something. And if we do simple markup, then we just see what is in the kind of like a clean version of it, but we can still see that we've had some information, and we can still see the comments, right? And then if we use no markup, that is exactly what the document will look like with no markup in it. And so we can see exactly what it will look like. And I think I will turn off my show all now that we're in the track changes. I'm just going to go back now to my review. So now it looks like a very clean document. We might even look at those without my track changes on. So the simple would have the comments out to the side, and you could see that there were changes made, but you couldn't really see that in the document itself. The all markup is where you can see all the information, and the no markup is what we were just looking at, what it would look like if we accepted all the changes. And then finally, the original is listed here of how I had sent it to somebody else. So you can see all of that from this one screen. I typically like to look at the all markup view. Sometimes it's easier for me to see that and determine, oh, do I want to? So, oh yes, and so the heavier bone is deleted potentially by Jenny. And if I'm going to look through these, I can do this little drop down menu now that I've got the document back, and I'm going to decide if I'm going to accept all these changes, some of these changes, none of these changes. If I do this little drop down menu, I can say accept and move to the next. Or if I looked at it in the no markup and it looked like fine with me, then I can accept all the changes. Or I can even accept all the changes and stop tracking, right? Because I'm still tracking my changes. So if I made a change here, description of Bassett's, I just took this off of Wikipedia, so I just wanted y'all to know that. Then it's tracking not only what I'm editing, but what the other two have edited as well. So maybe sometimes as you're in the final weeks of writing your thesis or dissertation, you may have track changes that you're sending to your chair and your committee, and they may be sending those back. And so you just want to make sure that you're saving those with a different kind of file name. So originally my file was Bassett Hound, and then Kimberly said, oh, I'm going to do the track changes and say KV edits. And a lot of times I do that with my own initials and edits. So CH edits. And you could have a conversation with your committee on how y'all were going to change those around, because it may go to your chair, and then your chair send it to another committee member, and then your chair of that committee member send it to another committee member, and then it gets back to you. So, or maybe even another round, right? Or maybe the chair made some choices that one of the committee members says, oh, wait, or vice versa. And then they kind of have a discussion about it and decide on something and then send it back to you. So you just want to be able to see all of that. I'm going to go ahead and use the drop down menu to say accept and move to the next. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure I put my cursor at the top of the page, and then do accept and move to the next, because I want us to see a couple of options before we just accept all the changes. So I'm going to say accept and move to the next. So now I do not have the line out here anymore indicating that there was tracking going on. And this has now been added as this is going to be part of the document. Now, the same thing happens when we move to the next one. Let's go ahead and do this first one that is in the document. And I'm going to say okay. And I'm going to say okay. And one more, and it will take it. Now it even took out the edit option over here on the side so that you can see it is perfectly set up to be normal text. There's no more track changes in this first part. Only until we get to right here do we start seeing some different track changes. And as you hover over that, it will tell you what happened. So Kimberly inserted this sentence, and then Kimberly asked about this and said, oh, do we need to cite Randy Fredrickson on this information? Maybe up in my literature review. So then that's in a comments. So I could even reply to this comment and still accept the changes and say, oh, maybe I do need to make that, and then do it, or make a note of it, and then you can accept it. So sometimes I might accept the edit of the text before I accept the edit of the comment. A lot of times at the end of the editing back and forth, I might leave the comments there so that I can see a reply, so we can see the tracking of that. What a great idea. I just like, yes, great idea, Kimberly. I will do that. And so whatever you want to say, I will make sure I put it in the literature review. So I may want to keep this around to make sure I check on that later in my literature review. But this simple text here, I might go ahead and say, oh, okay, I can accept that. So I'm going to say, well, let's maybe reject this one since we haven't done one of those. The same thing is happening in the reject list. We can say reject and move to the next. We can reject all changes, and we can reject and stop the tracking. So I'll take that sentence out and say reject and move to the next. Oh, sorry, guys. Let's make sure I get my cursor right where I want it to be. And so it took that sentence out. So we can look at that and see. If I wanted to say, oh, this looks really good when I put it on the no markup, I like everything here, I want it to be exactly like this, then let me go ahead and say accept all changes, and we'll go ahead and do that. I wanted us to kind of see we have a purpose of down below here. We made an error on purpose so that you could see that in the no markup, we accidentally took out a space. So in the markup, all markup, we'll want to make sure that Kimberly deleted friendly, but also took out the space as well. So I may need to put in a space there. And that will show as to track changes now. So Kimberly is blue in this document. Jenny is pink or purple, whatever you want to call this color, and I'm red in this document. But I will go ahead and do the accept all changes now. And you can see the comments need to be kind of accepted as well. So we're going to say, okay, accept, and move to the next. And then we can see that the social was put in here. And then you can say resolved with the comments and resolved, and then we can accept all and stop tracking. And we would move to the no markup, and we can see what it looks like. There we go. So that is how you would use the track changes. So if you're really working with a committee, you may they may have like lots of formatting issues in there in your document. And instead of going through each one, as long as it looks okay on the no markup, then just say accept all. And so I think that some people were having a hard time, like they were taking different documents and trying to marry them back together. And I just don't think you would catch all of those if you didn't use it in the single document. Now, some of us might really use Google Docs a lot, and that kind of does it live, right? And so you can see somebody is editing something if you're working in there together, or you can show it where it does track the changes a little bit as well. And so maybe we're kind of using that, or even the online Word one. Although I have to say the online Word one to me is not as user-friendly as the desktop app, if you will. So this Word is actually Word 365, but it's the desktop app on my on my computer. And so it is not just the online version. And so I don't know if y'all are aware of those two different issues. And so I would always try to do the work in the desktop app, not the online. I think you get some more options to manipulate the document here than you do online. So just be aware of that. Does anybody have any questions about the track changes? And we can, right now, I think I'm still tracking changes because I don't think I said accept all and stop tracking. Did I say that? Yeah, now I am. So I kind of just test. Another document. Okay, well, let's just make sure we get that all done. So we have a question. When I choose a no markup, but it still shows after copy it to another document. So I think what you're asking there is that if you have it on the no markup, yeah, so you really should be on the all markup, and you can see, let's kind of accept these and kind of delete these out real quick. So I'm just right clicking and cleaning up my comments, making sure I've done everything I needed to with that comment. This is if we were at the very end. You should be able to, let's do it now. So now that I'm on here, I'm gonna copy some of that we just saw, that we did all the track changes. Let's see what happens when I put it in a new, I don't think I've ever done this. Let's see, and then we're gonna look back under the review. I think it's clear now. Is that what you're asking? I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, good. So I think we cleared that up for her. And so once you accept it, or don't accept it, then that was, I think that's what the issue was. You have to make sure you clear that all, and so that the all markup should be clean, just like it should look like a no markup to an all markup. And that's what you're gonna see. Let's try that. I'm gonna just test that one time. I'm not gonna save these now that we used them. But well, I'll leave that open in case we have questions. But I'm gonna just quickly copy some of that from another one into a new one. So under review, if I actually change it to no markup, but I didn't really do anything with that track changes, and I haven't turned the track changes off or anything or resolved them, when I copy this over to a new one, I bet you it's still there. I bet you that's what you were kind of talking about. Yep. So it automatically moves it, and I can see the comment already. But if I go to review, I can change this, oh, to the all comments. So it didn't bring everything over. It just brought the comments over. That's interesting, because I would have thought it was gonna bring all the comments over, or all the track changes, but it only brought the comment. And you can handle it just the same way. You know, reply to it, resolve it, and then at the end you need to clear it out. Does anybody have any questions that we didn't get to? It's 3:19. We're just about 10 or so minutes before the end of the workshop. We're going to end at 3:30. Oh, thanks, Rachel. That's very nice of you. Is there anything in the templates that y'all wanted to ask that you've been having a problem with that we can maybe troubleshoot together? This is a safe place. I'm happy to help you do that. One other last thing, the last link here on my website is information about a thesis and dissertations boot camp. So if you are very close to completing, you may want to go ahead and register here. It's starting in March 21st to the 24th. But I believe you have to be defending it this semester. Let's just make sure I'm right about that. Yes, you must be defending the spring or summer to participate. So maybe if you're defending over the summer or right now, then you could do that. I really encourage you to do these boot camps. They're going to be very similar to what we just kind of did, but over a long time. And I think if you have an issue in your references or in your table of contents or something you can't figure out in formatting, they would kind of spend some time with you one-on-one if needed. And so they're going to do some big processes, but also maybe give you some individual attention as well. And then the last thing, if we can all do, I just dropped in the chat a evaluation. I really appreciate any feedback you have. I know we ended up being smaller than we thought we were going to be when we first got in here. Or you know, life happens. Sometimes we have to take something that we didn't expect was going to happen at work, and so we didn't get to go to the workshop that we thought. But if you could give me any tips and tricks to make this better for the fall. I just thought I had heard so many people ask about Word and kind of getting stuck in those templates, and I thought this might be a good session. If you think this session is not needed, please tell me that as well. I appreciate any kind of feedback you can drop there. Unless anybody has a question, I'm ready to wrap up unless you all have something.